icon. No.
The first thing we've inherited from Tony is the street itself. And the street is the true star of the show.
If I left tomorrow, people would come and say, it'll never be the same. You know, it'd be terrible if Jack left. No, I don't kid myself. Coronation Street would just run on. It wouldn't change, not one iota.
No, I'm used to it. I've been on telly before.
Yeah. You are?
Yeah. Done a few Coronation Street bits.
Oh, I've not seen you. I watch Coronation Street all the time.
When I was very young, my cousin was at the junior art school, and we used to meet up on Saturdays, and we used to go to Cross Lane Market in Salford. We were coming home, and the lights were just coming up on the stalls. And the fat was coming on to fry at Parker's chip shop, and on the telly it was wrestling. Outside Salford Hippodrome it said, "Strip, strip, hooray, we've nothing on tonight." I said, I love it, and it's not going to last like this, and I want to preserve it like flies in amber. And that's when I first thought, maybe I could do it with words.
When you wrote it, was it already set in the past, even though it was 1960?
As a writer, you must know that you can't write about today absolutely, because all you've got is yesterday to draw on.
Were these characters based on people you knew, particularly the women?
Well, the opening line of Elsie's is...
Hey, Elsie, just about ready for the knacker yard.
My Auntie Lily said, "You want to watch that bugger?" She says, "You have to keep your mouth shut." That's a fortnight later, it's on television.
So it was various aunts and grandmothers and...
Everybody, absolutely everybody. I was a rather sissyish little boy, and I used to go to my grandma's or I'd go to my mother's friends' houses. And then I used to watch very carefully the differences between men and women. And I used to go under the kitchen table at my grandma's and look out from underneath the bottom of the chenille cloth and think, that's what men say, and that's what women say.
Hey, ma'am, we've got a visitor.
Oh.
Me dad.
Thank God we've finished.
Eh?
I never could abide men who were going bald.
Well, there's plenty as can.
Aye, that's what they say. But you know what they're really thinking? I wonder what he was like when he had all his hair.
Were you very much drawn to sort of build it around strong women?
I grew up in a matriarchal society. I was surrounded, all the men were at war, and I was surrounded by strong women. And I expected that when the men came back, the men would take over and bugles would sound at the end of the streets and tom-toms would be beaten. And it wasn't a bit like that. The women just raised their voices to be heard, a bit louder, and went on just as they had done before. It was a great surprise.
Yes?
Never you do that again, you frighten the life out of me.
What can I get you?
We're quite all right, thank you.
Well, you see what that notice says? Ladies are kindly requested not to remain at the bar after being served.
Packet of crisps, Martha, get me purse.
But I think northern women are strong. They look after their men.
When he first came in, he was quite aggressive. And I didn't like him that much. And I softened him a little bit.
Over there, eh? This man is MPEX. This man is under his wife's thumb. This man is a feckless article.
One of the writers got him into an argument with Vera where he lost. And I enjoyed that. I thought, yeah, he's the kind of guy that would lose.
I think the northern men are inclined to be a bit under the thumb.
Well, let me tell you, when it comes round to the Messiah time of the year, I like to hear a good Messiah in this hall, and not some of your Judas Mackey something foreign tripe. Go on. Put me out in the street. There's my bed. There's my bits and pieces. Put them all out.
They've always dominated the street, the women. Firstly, because I think they were written that way. And secondly, because in the North, in this sort of environment, you very often find that the women are the dominant factor in a family.
Oh,
Oh, Luke, I don't care if it only costs 2 pence. It's no good and I'm not having it.
Oh, give over. It's better than nout.
Ooh, story of my life is that. Better than nout. It'll do. Yeah, well, I've had a sickener of better than nout. You can get rid of it, and yourself and all. And if you want to do me a favour, take him with you.
There was the little one, like Minnie Caldwell, who had been a dancing partner to Fred Astaire.
Yes, you see, it went all sad and soggy in the middle.
Oh, Minnie Caldwell, if anything's sad and soggy in the middle, it's you. Can we have 2 minutes?
And this little sweet old lady who always played the retiring one, she died one time. She looked up and she said, "Oh, canary balls, what is that line?" And so they were very rough-tongued. I mean, they'd come out of a rough school.
Can you think of anybody, any man in the early episodes who would, in your view, stand up, have the stature of several women we could both reel off?
Swindly. A little turkey cock, but swindly, yes.
Now, there's no need to carry on like this, Mrs. Sharples. We're just giving you fair warning.
Fair? Who else do you think's going to take this lousy job if I give it up? Go on, answer me that.
Oh, we shall have to face up to that if and when the time comes, shan't we? But it will come, Mrs. Sharples, unless you take notice of what I'm saying.
There was a great figure in my childhood called my Auntie Polly Duck, and my Auntie Polly Duck used to say, "I know your faults and love you still." And that's what those early episodes of Coronation Street are. It's me looking at the North and saying, yes, I know your faults, but love you still. Everybody knew a pub landlady like Annie. Everybody knew a bad girl that they loved like Elsie. And all battle axes were Ina. When you think about it, the 3 that really endeared themselves to the public were the world's biggest snob.
Oh, my idea of heaven is doing a foxtrot on a French chalked floor, knowing I look right.
Somebody who was downright evil.
Right. Did your mother or did she not stand screaming blue murder in the middle of Coronation Street at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Should have thought it kept you up.
Oh, the whole street was up.
And something precious close to a prostitute. And of course, writing for Vi or Doris Speed or for Pat Phoenix was, I should be so lucky to have the trio like that again in my life. Doris Speed was the best Judith Bliss in Hay Fever I ever saw. She was superb. I remember she had a purple dress with a silver stripe down the middle, and when she got indignant, the stripe quivered. Now, that takes great technique, to be able to do that.
That's a very particular physique, Tony.
Ina Sharples was like dealing with Bismarck. She was iron, and she felt iron.
Hey, do you know any generals?
Oh.
So I'll have to go, will I? And who's going to put me out? Tell me that, Mr. Leonard Swindley. You and whose army?
We had great difficulty in casting the character of Ina Sharples, and we trundled about 40 disgruntled old women in front of the camera, and none of them were any use at all. And in the end, I said, and the idea had been at the back of my mind, but I said, well, there's always Vi. But, I remember she'd never made my life very easy, so I wasn't about to bring her out of total obscurity and semi-retirement in Little Bispam. She had been a big name, and they debated whether it was worthwhile paying a third-class rail fare to bring her from Blackpool. Anyway, they came, and I thought, well, I'd better go and see her. So I went and knocked on the dressing room door, and so she, come in. So I went in, and she said, are you going to be in this? And written all over her face was, because if you are, I'm not. And I said, no, I wrote it. She said, it's a good script, and it's the only compliment she paid me for 25 years.
It was always very tempestuous to be with Pat Phoenix, because Pat Phoenix was tempestuous.
Sharples has gone to visit her sister.
Oh, more likely gone to polish her horns.
She said she would be back about midday.
Oh, did she? Well, in that case, I'm going. And you can tell her I've been. Oh, and while you're about it, you can tell her I'll be back.
Oh, good morning, Mrs. Tanner. Lovely morning.
I hadn't noticed.
And I learned more from having to talk to Pat Phoenix in a bad mood and hungover than I did by any kind of application of theory. And you just had to be able to deal with these people. And they had come up in a very rough school, and they were very powerful, and they were great big stars. and so they weren't necessarily going to take any notice of you whatsoever.
What does he look like?
Fair to middling.
Don't tell me anything, will you, Dennis?
Didn't think you were interested.
They all had fur coats. You know, you put it on your back. It was Manchester, fur coat and no knickers, and there it is.
What things?
All sorts.
Such as?
I've told you all sorts.
Thank you for nothing.
Pat had always been absolutely certain that she was going to be a great big star. She became Manchester's Joan Crawford. She was wonderful. She was absolutely marvellous. She had one sable coat that had a sable coat of its own. It had a little collar on the top of it. I was the writer she needed. There are no two ways about that. She was extraordinary in that when I would sit there writing it, I would hear it inside my head. And I could hear Pat's voice.
Well, I was going to put it in the papers, but I'll tell you instead.
Thank you very much.
There won't be any jeeps, there won't be any taxis, there won't be anything. As a matter of fact, you won't be seeing him again, and neither will I. And I hope you'll spread it around in the usual channels. Thank you very much for asking me if I had a good time. I did. Very much indeed.
Elsie, why?
Why what?
Why won't you be seeing him again?
Me and Common Sense were never the best of pals, but there's always a time to start, isn't there?
There goes a broken blossom if ever I saw one.
I don't suppose that many people spoke like Ina Sharples off the stage, and yet she seems a real character.
No. The number of people who've written to me and said, did you know Mrs. this, Mrs. that, Mrs. t'other, we're sure you must have based Ina on her.
There's lots of eras, I find, you know, going around. They always, people say, oh, you remind me of my neighbour. You know, Doris. Or my Auntie Gladys. Do you know my Auntie Gladys is your double? So there must be a lot of eras, I think.
The thing about without generalising here, about Northerners is that they say what they think. They call a spade a shovel. As all the women on the street do it, and it's almost like a patter. And Vera is very typical of it.
What do you mean you're tired? You were never tired when you worked for Beck Gilroy, were you? Oh, no. Now, listen, I phoned them up and they're ready. All you've got to do is give them the cheque and they'll give you the tills.
That's it, I'll just pour it across.
Right. You haven't time for that. Look, we're open in a couple of hours. Here, get going. I don't know. Just when things are going well, he tries to spoil it. Oh, poor as one, Betsy.
You wanted a word then, did you?
Oh, well, like I say, I've been observing and you don't do much, do you?
Thank you, Rovers bar, just here.
I think 75% of the success of the street, the continuity of the street, is the sound of the north, the rhythm of the voices.
You come across a Mrs. Tanner yet?
I can't say I have.
You will. You want to watch her? She's a bad one. Oh, and while I think on, you owe me an egg. Eh? One of them I had this morning was off. You should have brought it back. Brought it back? I told a pot towel to my nose before I could so much as take it to my back in. And if my word's not good enough, you're quite welcome. Come smell at my dustbin.
The other things will be 3 and 4pence.
Well, put them on slate. You don't need to worry. I'm not thinking of running away.
When I was a little boy, I was watching Coronation Street and I'm trying to write like the way Coronation Street sounded. So it's kind of, it feeds itself really. It feeds into the culture and it feeds back into itself.
I was in 2 or 3 episodes in about 1963 or 4.
Go down, I can't hear myself think.
Poster paint, does it make bad eye makeup?
If you're going to waste time doing your eyes, we'll never get finished.
Just listen to who's talking.
Yeah, well, all I'm saying is we've got to clear this lot up before my mother gets home.
I went for an audition to play Ken Barlow's girlfriend. I think Ken only liked college girls. And we were on to Banning the Bomb.
Oh, she might blow her top if she knew what we were going to do.
Because don't forget, it came out of, and Tony Warren came out of a time, the 60s, when, Alan Sillitoe and John Brain, Room at the Top and all that sort of thing was going on, and it was all social realism. And for the first time, it was beginning to be thought interesting to write about ordinary people and about the working class. And of course, that's also long ago, that what's happening now with Coronation Street, they still sort of cling to that idea, but it's almost a pastiche or a parody of what went on before.
In a sense, it disguised itself as sort of northern realism, part of Saturday Night and Sunday Morning and The Long Distance Runner and so on. But it was a highly theatrical piece, really, wasn't it?
Yes, it was highly theatrical. I came from the theatre.
Is the humour particularly northern, do you think?
Yes. It's the nearest thing to Jewish humour. It's very wry. Adversity breeds backbone and telling comment.
Is it something that you think came out of the north, cultivated in the clubs and in the music halls? In the earlier episodes, I'd say the Ina Sharples routine are almost music hall routines.
The woman is a woman who has been to music halls and seen routines.
You know, sometimes I think I'm just about ready to go off down to that cemetery. But if I had my way, I'd just like to go like my mother did.
Gee, that were a beautiful ending.
Oh, lovely. She just sat up, broke wind, and died. We all having the same again, girls.
I don't mind if I do.
Some people hate the comedy element in Coronation Street and think that it has no place in this kind of show. But I think it's what makes us different.
Oh, come on, Reg. I mean, why do I have to be here? Because I need moral support. Moral support? You're having your hair cut. No, I'm not having it cut. I'm having it supplemented.
The small features of people's lives is wonderful. And the shifts and the little strategies that people adopt to make life a little bit more bearable.
Yes, but this is not for worrying. This is not for personal vanity. It is for survival, professional camouflage. Because in the commercial jungle, an executive like myself needs to look young.
Now I understand what you've been wittering on about, eh? All falls into place now, if you'll excuse the pun. This wig.
This hairpiece I'm having, it is an investment for my future.
Hello, Mr. Rovers. Would you like to come through, please?
Oh, yes, thank you, certainly.
Hey! Where are you going?
To the fitting room. These things are done with discretion. They don't just clap it on your head and shout bingo, you know.
But what am I supposed to do while you're in there?
Oh, wait here for me, if you would. I rely on you. Just keep your hands up.
Husbands pretend that their wives are beautiful and the wives pretend that the husbands are virile, and it makes life a bit better, doesn't it?
Standing by.
Cute. Do you know, I think this has been the happiest day of my life.
Their speech patterns are in your head. Their parlance, how they phrase things, and that's the way you write it.
And you've had a shower, haven't you? Oh, you smell lovely. Jack? Jack? Not tonight, we're going to be lovely and all.
I've got a great love of variety comedians. I think that was a great period for comedy. There's another northern adage which says it's too daft to laugh at. And I think that is, between the two, you get perhaps what I'm trying to say.
Just to go back to Raquel for a minute, can we not have jealousy between Raquel and Vera and floaty negligees and things like that?
Well, we'd agreed not to, weren't we going to have a...
It just came up a minute ago.
Well, the unity problem in that house would be the vision of Jack on the landing in a very short vest and not much more, heading for the bathroom, because that's the sort of thing.
And Raquel,
but also there's something there between Jack and Raquel. You know,
Yes.
they're the two. They've worked together before they took over the pub.
But just going back to Jack, I mean...
Coronation Street is very blokish, I think. Having said which, it still kind of retains the sort of camp strain that Tony put there. I mean, I think that's partly because of the cast, and the writers feed off the cast, and the cast feed off the writers.
You don't know where I can find a sugar daddy to buy me a new fur coat, do you? This is that one, it's nearly see-through.
Some of them, in the nicest possible way, could be in a pantomime. Bet could be in a pantomime as she is. I suppose it all went downhill in that way, moral-wise, after Ina Sharples left. I mean, she wouldn't have allowed it, would she?
There always has been a big pantomime dame element to it, and I suppose the thing about the pantomime dame is that it's a view of femininity that's seen through the eyes of masculinity.
Oh, you're surfaced then? Just about. You should have wakened me. I'm late for work. Yeah.
For God's sake, we're talking about Back Street, Salford. It's 9 o'clock in the morning and she's there in the leopard skin collar. That hairdo would take about 3 hours to get ready.
Well, what?
All the slap, all the jewellery. It's drag, I'm sorry.
this is a woman's show. It always has been, it always will be, and I think that's probably, well, it has to be Tony Warren's influence, and the writers have stuck to that. It was written by a gay man. It couldn't have been devised by anybody else or written by anybody else at the time.
What about your own association with it? You wrote the first 13 straight off, as I understand it.
Yes.
Which is an enormous task. What happened after that?
Well, then it was obvious that I couldn't carry on writing it, and then the Blokes took over. It was very odd that this loving but slightly ironic view that I'd taken of the north of England could be viewed from a totally different angle and still made to work. But they came in and they'd never seen anything like me in their lives before, most of them. And here was I, and I'd invented it. And it got a bit unpleasant. It got very unpleasant because I was openly gay at a time when it was not considered very sensible to be openly gay. But somebody had to stand up and say, yes, I'm gay. But they ganged up. They really did gang up as well. And I don't think they even knew they'd done it until there was a terrible morning. There was a story conference. And I sat there and I listened and I listened and I listened. And then I got to my feet. Nobody gets to their feet to address story conference. And I said, gentlemen, I have sat here and listened to 2 puff jokes, to an actor referred to as a puff, to a line dismissed because it's puffy. And I would remind you that without a puff, none of you would be in work this morning. And nothing was ever quite the same after that.
Do you think that it could only have been invented by a gay man then, Tony?
Yes. Only this gay man, I think, could have written it. Well, people say I was, he was 23 when he wrote it. How could he know so much? But believe you me, a gay guy who's been out on the scene since the age of 16, at 23, is Elsie Tanner.
What is it?
You know, they used to call us good time girls, but we did have a good time. We had a damn good time.
And you'll have more. Now, what's bothering you? Come on, tell me. Steve's here. It's all right.
You wouldn't credit it, but you'd think you'd grow out of being a big kid.
Then I found something very frightening. I found that a writer has a voice, and I had used my voice very effectively in the early episodes of the show. All the writers who'd followed had been encouraged to pick up where I left off. So they picked up the tone of voice. And I discovered that my style had become common property. I'm not at all sure that there weren't people who could do it better than I did.
Right. You know, something like that. Every lying bit of gossip that goes about what you don't know, you make up. We don't need sewers around here. We've got Ina Sharple.
I got something wrong with a woman that can't hang on to her husband.
At least mine wasn't carried out feet first.
What do you mean by that, eh? What do you mean by that? Are you listening to this? What you was witnesses after this?
It's no secret.
Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I would crawl 50 miles to see 2 working-class women having a Barney in the street. I think it's the best thing in the world. It makes me die. And if there's going to be a bit of hair pulling and a bit of slapping, but it's the verbal, not the physical, and that's what you got in Coronation Street. Fabulous lines, put-downs and slagging.
That woman's warriors was all leg tan and laughter.
Morning, Mrs. Sharphurst.
Hello, are you feeling happy now you're back in the diplomatic service?
By the end of the 60s, Coronation Street was established as the nation's favourite programme. But Warren, its creator, had descended into an amnesia of drugs and alcohol. He emerged over a decade later. He now enjoys a successful career as a novelist. How do you describe your current role in the programme, Tony?
I have been turned into a grand old man rather earlier than is usual. They send for me when they can't think of any other bugger to ask. It has hills and valleys. And when it's on the hills, oh yes, it's very definitely my programme. But when it's down in the valleys, I'm the one that people stop and smack with shopping bags and say, what are you doing to it? Because people care desperately about the show.
pub on the corner and a corner shop on the other one. And it's life, isn't it? People are friendly, the neighbours, they're nosy, but they care about each other. I mean, sometimes when we finish filming and they say that's a wrap, I think, oh, I'd love to go in that little house, you know, and switch telly on and, you know, even with pigeons in the backyard, it just seems inviting.
Coronation Street is 4 miles in any one direction from the centre of Manchester. Emotionally, it's wherever you want it to be in your own heart.
Hey, I think this is where they have the scriptwriters' conference. I've often wondered what these writers get up to, you know.
Could Jim work with Bill?
Well. Oh, wait up, they're not killing me off.
Ladies ripped off the whole thing then. It's great.
But this plum job, I think we do need to know what it is, because it ultimately has to be whatever it is that takes him away. So is it still Lois stuffed? Or
Do we,
what is
well,
that?
come back to that. Yes,
It's to do with the fact that we were setting up a story that we've changed our minds about, so we should take all the setup of it out.
Yes, exactly that. Because what it's become is better than what it was going to be that we hadn't actually worked out.
The Coronation Street story conferences are a game of consequences. Every 3 weeks you come back for another round of the same game of consequences. You pick up. The best question to ask at any Coronation Street story conference is, where did we leave off?
In the trade, they call him Firmin the Merman. He's half man, half fish. and
Reg has the comb and the glass in his hand.
Yeah. And one thing leads to another, and he's the man with the codpiece.
I think the codpiece.
So he'd want to train up an apprentice before he left.
The way you leave often depends on how you have behaved during the time you've been in the show. I was given a very nice dignified exit, and I can always go back if I want to.
Go back, you stupid bitch!
The cast are kept in line by the storylines, and if we want a character to leave, we will write them out.
Right, give it here. Slowly.
How's it going?
They're taking it! You bloody idiot!
That's a bit cheeky, even for you. Soon as I can.
Yeah, she'll be along in about half an hour.
You can go.
He's had 23 girlfriends and 3 wives. He certainly can attract the women, but he doesn't seem to be able to keep them. He's a bit careless with them, I think.
I think it's a mistake, actually, to make Reg go out all mortified and miserable.
I
It's tail
agree.
between
I
his
agree.
legs.
I think so.
I think we ought to see him going out, you know, as bobbish as ever. Do we want to give Reg a little bit of fun in his last episode? You just let Ken Morley play 2 parts at once himself. And this chap who looks uncannily like him, but very bestial. Very bestial.
Oh, I don't think Ken Morley will go for that at all.
With or without the toupee.
Hi, diddly-dee, an actor's life for me. A high silk hat and a silver cane, a watch, a robe with a diamond chain. Hi, diddly-doo, you sleep till after 2.
You promenade with a big cigar.
You tour the world in a private car. You dine on chicken and caviar. An actor's life for me. I don't want to be a pirate and sail the ocean blue. I don't want to be the man in the moon. Do you?
I don't want to go to Iceland and be an Eskimo.
I don't want to be a baker, although I need the dough.
He needs the dough.
I need the dough.
He needs the dough.
I need the dough.
He needs the dough.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol. Oh, hi, diddly-dee, an actor's life for me. A high silk Canada silver.
Angela and Tracy, that's cut. Sorry about that. And episode 3, scene 4 in the
You promenade with a big cigar.
You tour the world in a private car. You dine on chicken and caviar. An actor's life for me.
I think writers must seem like the fates or like some hideous Chinese gods that just sort of wander around the earth making mischief for actors.
Tim Aspinall. He was a script psychopath. And he was with a group of writers. It was a Friday night, which is the night you did the show. And so after you'd done the show, you all went over and drank. And he said to these guys, the other writers around him, he said, I bet you don't think that I can kill Martha Longhurst in the Snug on New Year's Eve. And they all said, no, you can't do that. You couldn't do that, Tim. Whoa, you couldn't do that. So he went and did it.
The reason why I chose to write out Martha Longhurst of the trio in the Snug was because Martha was a relatively young woman. She was a brilliant actress, and I thought she'd walk into another job immediately. I was amazed when I heard that she wasn't getting work. Years later, I used her in a show, and she said that she'd hardly worked, apart from this job, after she left the street.
They drank some port wine when they down at the Overland Bush. Bush, bush.
The characters they portrayed were so vivid, and producers, not audiences necessarily, producers identified them with the strong parts they were playing in Coronation Street.
Leaving the street, well, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think about it. But I was a jobbing actor before I joined the street, and it's a very hard and cold world out there. And I don't really know if I want to go back to all that again.
Bastard.
Continue to listen. That's it, great. Quiet, please, for rehearsal. Standing by.
Righty, the big do.
Paul! Do you mean they didn't come again?
No, they've been in.
Been in? What do they do? Go around with a frigging swatter?
Well, fingers crossed, you know, touch wood.
Well, I was wondering about Friday and everything because I don't think that we said, did we? You know, there was me thinking, did you want me or not? And when you said that you did, I was just really, well, with us getting us notice off the Broadway. You see, I didn't think to.
Quiet, please, fellas. It's a wild track.
Can't go for tea now.
Go on, go on, go on.
Jack.
What?
You know what?
What?
I'm really happy.
Hi.
Cut.
Thank you.
When I first joined the show, it was gravy brownie, and I didn't like the taste of that, so it's apple juice now.
Because it exists in a kind of a Neverworld, it probably can deal more easily with the really big questions. death, birth, marriage, love, loss.
No, I'm serious.
No, I know a lot of people look at
This is Raquel's engagement party. She's been very badly hurt by Des. As soon as Des arrives, you know there's going to be trouble. Because the audience know, she's never said it, that her strongest feelings are for Des.
I want to talk to you.
What's great about that is because there's so much tension in that relationship, I can do whatever I like with the rest of it, because do you know that she's just fallen down the lift shaft, really.
It's a code, you see.
Because she's so good at expressing the emotion of the story and the tension of the story, it means that we'll never lose the narrative line. Because every time you look at her face, you can see how much she's suffering and how hard she's trying to disguise that fact.
Red wine, is that right?
That's right.
And Curly's face is great as well. That as soon as you see that face, you know he's lost. As soon as Des came in, the whole kind of jig was up, really.
A bit of promotion or even skiing down Everest.
You know it's true.
Now, Luke, what you've made me do is on my dress. My party frock. Curly bought me this.
Never mind the dress. Come on, Raquel.
No, just leave me alone! You've ruined my dress. You've ruined my party. You ruined everything.
Look, I'm sorry about the dress, but there's things I've got to get said before Curly comes in. Marry me.
She's very, very much an idealist. And because of that, when reality hits, it hits very, very hard. She's an extremely complex character.
I can't marry you, Curly. I'm sorry.
Look, we'll go for a walk. You've had a shock, that's all. It'll be all right.
No, I just want to go home.
The last shot where she just sort of clatters off down the alley by herself. And then she walks through this puddle, which I don't know why it does it. The puddle just seems to make the whole ending really epic and big.
I can't marry anyone. I'm sorry.
It's an epic image, the moon in the gutter and all that crap, you know.
Raquel! Raquel!
One of my favourite episodes was the Curly Raquel engagement party, written by Frank Cottrell Boyce. And it's very bizarre because I've never met Frank.
But it's possible to collaborate with an actress, even though I only ever see her when she goes out on the screen, because I like the fact that I only see her as a viewer.
The reason that we've ended up with the character that we've now got is because I tried to do something which was very far removed from me. She's terribly easy to slip into, providing that physically she looks very right. Get the shoes right and get the clothes right. And if the shoes aren't right, then she's not right. Occasionally, you know, when you've been on your feet for 6 or 7 hours behind the Rovers, there's a really nice temptation to go and put a pair of slippers on because nobody ever sees your feet. But I couldn't do that. Something would alter.
There we are.
It would be a betrayal to the character. I don't regard her as being a sex symbol because she's not aware enough. She doesn't realise the effect that she has on people. Brilliant. She doesn't realise that she's responsible for an awful lot of the situations that she gets herself in. She isn't necessarily a victim. I think she's done very well to survive with her particular physical image in this day and age. Thank you, honey. Brilliant. I'll see you in 2 scenes. She's now somebody who I am very, very, very fond of. She's a great friend. I'd love to have her living next door to me.
Oh, it'll all end in tears, I know it will. 65p, Vera.
Get something for her till, I said. He's been gone ages. Yeah, love. Get some in there. First, please. Here, collect a few pots while you're out there, will you, Betty, love?
The decision to move the Duckworths into the Rovers came from 2 sound bases. One, that they had already applied for a pub in the story some time ago and been turned down. But also because Bet was a very strong character.
Oh, can you imagine? Come here. Oh, I feel like a pussycat.
I don't know who you look like. You remind me of somebody.
All smooth and sexy.
The notes that need to be struck are the notes like the first payday, when everybody lines up and it's Vera trying to take out their pay. And suddenly she's, in her life, she will have been many times on emergency tax, won't she? And it's a bloody iniquity. Who's got the emergency? It's me got the emergency. I've had no money. And the bloody country say, oh, they've got to take all your money because it's an emergency. Because they haven't got your bloody tax code. It's bloody monstrous. But she's got people now. She doesn't know what to do, but she doesn't want to give them any money she'd have to get back. And she said, well, I'll have to put you on emergency. And people said, what do you mean on emergency? Well, I don't know what your tax is, you see, love, so I'll have to put you on emergency this week, so you get half your money, and you'll have it a week in hand and all of that.
Now, listen. We'll pay you the same money as the brewery's paying you. Well, for now, anyway. I mean, if you've got any money owing, any entitlement, well, get it off them because they don't cross over, you know.
All right, so I can tell the others, can I? Because I know they're wondering like I was.
Oh, you can tell them there'll be no changes made just yet.
Hey, hold your horses, yo.
Well, at any road, it's nice to know I'm not signing on.
Of course you're not. You're a great asset.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I told you, didn't I? Didn't I tell you? Your job is safe.
And who else have you told, eh? Not that Bill, for one.
Vera, we need a cellarman. We are going to be needing a cellarman.
We've got a cellarman. I'm looking at a cellarman.
No, you are not. You are looking at mine host.
Never mind mine host. She can't add up, you know, Vera. She can't add up. I don't think... I think she'd be all right with a pint and a half. But then if they said 20 silk coat and 2 packets of cheese and onion crisps, I think it'd be too much. Now listen, I ain't time for that. I'm Harris, can't you?
No time, Jack. I'm under pressure.
Look, I've no time, Jack. I'm under pressure. Can't you see?
Look, don't mind me telling you, love. Look, I know. Yeah, but we've not got enough hands behind the pumps, love.
Not because our Jack's had too much to do, hasn't he?
Yes, but while I'm back there twiddling my thumbs...
I'll have a word for you. You have to close in
right.
time. Look, I haven't been sat here, you know. Doing no, I've been observing. What have I been observing now?
Well,
It'll be all right, won't it?
Leave it for 6 months before the duckies decide. Or the accountant tells them that, well, you only owe 2,000 quid more than you did 6 months ago. I mean, so you're doing very well. Because it's a banter, as accountants always say.
But on the... Yeah,
so in the meantime...
That note is premature, but nonetheless...
It's Jack showing barmaids, potential barmaids, how to pull the pint, and you'll have to stand back a bit, won't you, love? Yes. I'm not grumbling and all that.
It is a nice thought, though. I like
You have that many props behind the bar, as well as being an actor. You're a bloody juggler. The hours are ridiculous. You can work 5 to 7 days a week, and you can work from 12 to 16 hours a day. And if you get the 7 days a week for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks, you finish up, your brains are like strawberry jam.
Well, it just stays with you. I mean, I'm always thinking about what did I do that right? The next scene, how do I find a way through that? And that's driving home. And then you get home and then you go, hello, how are you? Fine. And then you're still thinking about it because it needs that thought.
Jack dies immediately. I'd come out of the studio. I'd go in my dressing room and I'd take off his penny and his stuff, and I put them in a drawer and wardrobe, take them away, and I get in my car and I go home.
I go in Marx's and I'm looking at knickers and bras and stuff. And they're going, it's you, isn't it? You know, and you're trying to think, what size is this? And I go, yeah. And they go, how's your Jack? And I go, well, I said, it'll either be in the cellar, you know, with the drinks and everything, or he'll be feeding the pigeons. They go, oh, of course he will. And then they've gone, but they're happy because you've answered as Vera.
Star is born, they possess a gift or two. One of them is this: they have the power to make a wish come true. You wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do.
Oh, here he is. I thought you'd got lost.
You're moving on the tip for this and do the time being here.
Look at the state of your cap, old pants, looking like that.
But I'm just nipping have a shower, shall I?
Oh, no, you don't. Raquel wants some bitter putting on.
Well, at least change my shirt.
There's no time, Jack. I'm under pressure, can't you tell?
Like a boat out on
Deaf, I heard you the first time.
What's up?
Nothing's up. Good night. Isn't it about time you was getting changed, or do you intend to stop all night in your old bowling cardigan?
Oh, still got one or two things to see to, love.